who invented the film department, the auditorium that we're in now, dates back to her time. She came over from England already as a film expert, although that was just an amateur designation because film was not a professional thing to curate or write about or anything. Films were popular entertainment that were literally thrown away after they were shown in the theater during their run. So Iris and a few colleagues of hers around the world thought, oh, you know what, probably films shouldn't be thrown away. That was the giant insight. But so Iris first started here, got a job, decided to come to New York, got a job as a librarian here because there was no such thing as a film department. Unpaid. Unpaid. But then skip ahead to becoming the head of the film enterprise. What happened is she was made curator of film, and her husband, who had 0 credentials, was made the director of the film department.
Wow.
That's one story. Another is Mrs. Barr, one of our great subjects, who for, decades was basically unpaid labor by Alfred Barr's side, among other things, for the reason that he didn't know how to speak anything other than English. And in the 1930s, if you're dealing with modern art, whether it's French, German, etc., there would be no way to communicate with the collectors, with the artists, with your museum colleagues in Europe in English. And she had all these languages, she was Italian, and basically she was by his side from the time of their honeymoon, doing all of his verbal and written translation, and that's frankly even just the least of it, what she did. But the degree to which one can just fairly say that he could not have done his job for 10 minutes without Marga Barr is just absolutely the case. And it goes on and on. Nancy Newhall in the book became the head of the photo department when her husband, Beaumont Newhall, went to war in World War II. But she had basically been his co-head since he was head. So the flexibility and the blurability of work and romance at that time is something we would not be allowed today. But also I think, and I want to hear what Sloan and Romy think, it must have added to the, impossible to imagine kind of just fun of being here at that point. I mean, the gossip alone, like from that office to that office, must have been so off the charts.
I mean, you take it away first.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, yeah, it's so funny to think back to a time when, if your husband goes to war, you just step in, to his shoes. But it goes back to what you were saying before. I think about this kind of sort of fervent enthusiasm and almost like a rabid enthusiasm for what they were doing. It was like they were so dedicated to the cause of modern art, and it was a cause to them. And the idea that there would be a place and that they could work that was dedicated to this belief that they could, showcase these artists who were not being shown almost anywhere else. They were so passionate about it. So it makes sense almost that it took up these different parts of their lives. It was like their whole lives on some level.
Yes, very much their whole lives. No work-life balance at all.
No, I know. I wonder what the Europeans, I wonder what the French and the German think of that. Like, why are you calling it this hour? What is this telegram coming from? Like, from my shower. But, yeah, I mean, for Sarah, you can tell, I mean, she has to have been, to some extent, the keeper of some of these secrets. Which is always kind of funny to me as someone who, has written a lot, spoken a lot, used to work in publicity, seems like not a safe place for secrets.
Absolutely not.
Secrets, absolutely not. Secretly am. because you know how to like be like, watch the birdie.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know other things. So I think a lot of it actually did filter through her, but also just even internally, just she called everyone babes. Like there was a curator that she just was wearing glasses, and then for the rest of their correspondence, she's like, "Hey, glasses, I need this." You know, and there was one of my favorite pieces that I handed you back all of your research. I really, really did. I might have stolen one page. It was photocopied. It's not original, but I did take it out of the binder, and it's on my wall in my office just because I love it so much. And it has, you know, cool like museum stamps and stuff like that. But it's basically, it just struck such a chord with me as someone, or anyone who's worked in an office, or anyone who's just been fed up. There was someone who kept trying, a sort of minor journalist who kept trying to get tickets to the museum, free tickets. And the way Sarah writes, because she was also a writer, talking about this woman who once in a blue moon writes for a Russian newspaper in Chicago and has been like, you know, sort of waving her tattered clippings, saying, you know, give me free tickets. And she's like, everybody, you know, because to your point, I think the departments were really, there was sort of this osmosis between them and just these unclear boundaries. And she'd say, you know, if this woman approaches you, you know, you pick a side. Are you on the side, you know, are you on the side of the museum or are you not? You know, and it's just this incredible anger that she has at this woman trying to get free tickets to her museum.
And we have the exact same thing today. Like, not a,
It's not gossip, but you can feel how like she delighted in writing that note.
yeah. So I'll just close by saying so many of these things we're saying that were so different back then, so many are like absolutely familiar 1,000% to us today. So we're gonna open it up for 2 or 3 questions, or 4 or 5 from you all, but then after the questions, we're gonna go out for a little reception, and please feel free to know that you can ask any of the 3 of us questions individually as well. We're sending a mic up and down the rows.